Many people don't realize that the change starts within your community. And one of the things that will help you change your community is learning the role of a sheriff. Don't presume and assume that the sheriff knows his rights, duties, and obligations to the American people. That's a fatal error and mistake. Recently, I learned about what is called a sheriff's inquiry. And a sheriff's inquiry is basically a sheriff holding his own court. And so when I talk to you guys about the Foreign Registration Act, created in 1938, amended in 1939, the sheriff can do an inquiry as to the agents and agency that are in his county, in his community, because he was elected by the people. And his duty is to the people, first and foremost. And so he can create what is known as a sheriff's inquiry and rally up 25 people to review the evidence, to convene a grand jury to indict these criminal actors. And they should be doing this. The sheriff falls under the executive branch and is not subject to the judicial branch. Okay, there's a separation of powers clause. And one of the greatest fundamental flaws that we have in our communities is our sheriffs being trained by the federal government in a manner that's conducive for allowing this racketeering and extortion to continue on. And so it's important to either become learned and run for sheriff in your local community so as you can hold these people accountable by holding sheriff's inquiries, which are really courts of the sheriff, where he convenes a grand jury to review the evidence. And we get rid of these rat bastards out of our communities once and for all. Now remember, twice in American history, the bar rats, lawyers and esquires, have been run out of this nation. And somehow they always find their way back in. But this time I think we could do it for good. They've done enough damage that it should be written in the history books as to the atrocities that have allowed to be manifested in our communities from these people alleging to uphold the law, when in all actuality they're hiding the truth in their nature. You know, their nature is not to lead to tranquility within the community, but how much they can extort and fleece from the community, all under the guise of a civilized society. Many of them don't actually practice what they preach. So one thing that it would benefit you greatly in your community to do would be to become keen on the sheriff's position and to start sending him notices or her notices of their rights, duties, and obligations to the American people. Because after all, if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't have a pot to piss in. So it's time to get them to start working for us. That means they do a sheriff's inquiry of whether or not the alleged judge has an actual valid oath of office under Article 6 of the Constitution, as well as the state constitution, as well as Title 4, subsection 101, and their Title 5 3331 oath of office as well, which is for profit, ladies and gentlemen. So as soon as we start to do our sheriff's inquiries and force the sheriff to do his rights, duties, and obligations to the American people, for which he's being handsomely compensated for, we will see a change in our communities. And the sheriff has the ability to arrest these people once a conclusive finding of them being derelict in their duties and obligations to register with the Foreign Registration Act of 1938, amended in 1939. A lot of the problems that I've seen are when I inform sheriffs of this, they say, well, the judge said. I don't give a shit what the judge said. You are a single and separate unit from the judiciary. After Abe Lincoln, when Abe Lincoln reconvened Congress under a memorandum, which Congress had the ability to come in and reconvene under their own power, but they chose instead to reconvene under his memorandum, the Congress then became the board of directors for the commander-in-chief of the United States, which is a military force. And when that happened, the judiciary was derelict in their duty to stop it. And so they now became the administrators for the executive branch, for the commander-in-chief, and they administer on behalf of the benefit of the commander-in-chief of the largest standing army in the world. And so when you start to comprehend what I'm talking about, that means that everything is actually under the executive branch. That's why the President of the United States cannot be impeached, because he is the highest authority. They can't get rid of him. They tried to impeach Slick Willie. They couldn't do it. I never understood why until Mr. Anonymous sat me down and really explained to me the history of this great nation, which you don't typically find in American history books. Remember, the victor of the battle tends to write the history or the way that they saw it fit. And so it takes a great amount of due diligence and research to come across this acquired knowledge that I so freely speak of and give to you and bestow upon you, in the hopes that mankind can ascend of the mind and see what's truly transpired. With that said, remember, the sheriff is an elected official under the executive branch, not subject to the judiciary. And because they are not subject to the judiciary, they do not answer to the judiciary. Okay, in fact, their job is to keep the judiciary in check, period. So with that said, just planting a seed out here, talk to your local sheriffs and ask them if they've ever convened a grand jury. Ask them if they've ever done a sheriff's inquiry. Ask them if the sheriff has ever held his own court due to the dereliction of duty and the breach of oath of office with these public officials allegedly operating in the judicial system. What we have here is blatant tyranny, mixed war, threat, duress, and coercion, conspiracy against unalienable rights, as well as extortion, human trafficking, and drug trafficking within our communities, all at the behest of Bar Association members who have managed to make it legal to do these things, so long as they conform to the statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations while they're doing it. And many of them don't even do that. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you soon.